Welcome to your Algebra 1 lecture video. This is the first video in Unit 2, Solving Equations. So this is Section 2.1, Solving One-Step Equations. Our learning target for this entire unit is that you can, by the end of the unit, you will be able to create equations in one variable, and you'll be able to use equations to solve problems. So that's something that we'll be doing in each and every lesson. For this particular lesson, our learning target is that you can explain each step in solving a simple equation and that you can use your rules of algebra to solve an equation. So let's take a look at our first example. Here we're solving an equation using subtraction. If you notice, you have x plus 17, so there's addition going on here, and that's equal to 39. Now, one of the things that you want to do anytime you're solving an equation is you want to isolate the variable. So you want to get this variable x with a coefficient of 1. The number out front should be a 1. Remember, we don't really write a 1 when we have just one x, but it's understood that it's there. So that's already done here. You already have a coefficient of 1 for your variable. But now I need to get it by itself. So I need to get this plus 17 out of there. The way that you do that is you look for the inverse operation. If this operation here is addition, then the way to undo addition is through subtraction. And your properties or your rules of algebra tell you that whatever you do to one side of an equation, you have to do to the other. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to subtract 17 from both sides. When we do that, I still have my x. A plus 17 minus 17 gives me 0 over here. And then we have 39 minus 17, and that will give us 22. So here, x is equal to 22. Now we can check that, and the way that we check that is we put 22 in for x. So here, let's check. So we have 22 plus 17. Is that indeed equal to 39? Well, 22 plus 17 is 39, so I get 39 is equal to 39, so that checks out. So that means that x is indeed 22. So now let's take a look at this. Here we have solving an equation using addition. The reason why we're using addition here is because we want to be able to get this b by itself. Here, b is being subtracted by 7. So we have to undo that operation. To undo subtraction, we add. So we're going to add a 7 to both sides. So now I have negative 15 plus 7 will give me a negative 8. And then I've got b minus 7 plus 7 is 0. So I just have b is equal to negative 8. Now it doesn't matter if you get it like this, negative 8 is equal to b, because that's the same thing as saying b is equal to negative 8. These two things here, these are the same. Let's look at solving an equation using division. If I'm using division, that must be I'm trying to undo multiplication. Anytime you see a coefficient or a number in front of a variable with no operation written between the two, it's understood that this is 15 times x. Mathematicians are just a little lazy and they don't write that times. So what we have here, we have 15 times x. To undo that, I need to divide by 15. Whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other. So once I divide 15 by 15 here, I just get x on the right, and I get 10 divided by 15 on the left. Now I can reduce this. Whenever you can, reduce as much as possible. Always reduce. This means I'm looking for some number that will go into both 10 and 15. That happens to be 5. So when I take 10 and divide 5 out of it, I get 2 left. When I take 5 and divide 5 out of 15, I get 3. So my answer here is x is equal to 2/3. Now keep in mind, I can check this. So let's do that here. Let's check this, just to be sure we did this right. So I'm going to take my original equation. 10 is equal to 15 times x, but now x is 2/3. I've got fractions here. I can multiply my fractions because I can turn 15 into 15 over 1. And then I can multiply straight across. So I have 10 is equal to 15 times 2 is 30. It's a little more room. And then 1 times 3 is 3. Now I have 10 over here. 30 divided by 3 is 10. Yep, that checks out, so we're good there. All right, now we're going to solve an equation using multiplication. If we're using multiplication, division must be going on. So here, indeed, I have x divided by 4 is equal to negative 9. If I'm dividing by a 4, to undo that, I just need to multiply each side by 4. Keep in mind our rules of math and algebra tell us that whatever we do to one side, we can do the other. These 4's cancel, so I get x is equal to negative 36. Another way to look at this, here I have 2/3. I have a fraction out here. If I want to get rid of a fraction, I need to multiply it by the reciprocal. The reciprocal just means I'm going to flip this guy. So 3/2 is the reciprocal of 2/3. So we'll multiply each side by that. So we'll multiply this side by 3/2 and this side by 3/2. So I've got 3/2 times 2/3 q is equal to 18 times 3/2. So let's see what happens here. 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 3 is 6. I get 6 over 6 times q is equal to 3 times 18. 3 times 18 is 54 divided by 2. 6 over 6 here, what really ends up happening, that becomes a 1. So I just have q on that side. Q is equal to 54 over 2. See, can I reduce that at all? I can. See, 54 divided by 2 gives us 27. So Q is equal to 27. All right, let's take a look at the story problem here. We're going to use a one-step equation as a model. Mathematics many times models what goes on in the real world. So toucans and blue and yellow macaws are both tropical birds. The length of the average toucan is about 2/3 the length of the average blue and yellow macaw. Toucans are about 24 inches long. What is the length of an average blue and yellow macaw? Okay, let's take a look at this story problem. Here we're going to use a one-step equation as a model. Mathematics many times models what goes on in the real world. The toucans and blue and yellow macaws are both tropical birds. The length of the average toucan is about 2/3 the length of the average blue and yellow macaw. Toucans are about 24 inches long. What is the length of an average blue and yellow macaw? So let's say here that a blue and yellow macaw, we're going to say that that's our variable. We're going to call that L, because that's what we're looking for, is the length of an average blue and yellow macaw. And what we know is that a toucan is about 2/3 the length of a macaw. So let's say a toucan, we'll put this in words first. Toucan is 2/3 the length of a macaw. So let's say, can we put this in math? A toucan, it tells us toucans are 24 inches long. So we know that a toucan, which is 24 inches, is always equal to 2/3 the length of a macaw. And we said the macaw was L. So there we go. We have our one-step equation here. So let's actually do the math. I've got multiplication going on here. And this happens to be a fraction. So remember, we learned with fractions, we can actually multiply by the reciprocal to get rid of it. So we'll multiply each side by 3/2. So on my right, these two fractions actually will kind of cancel out, become 1. So I just have L on the right. 3 times 24 is 72, and 2 times 1 gives us 2, so we have 72 divided by 2. 72 divided by 2 is 36 inches. So a blue and yellow is 36 inches. Here's your lesson check. Go ahead and pause, try these problems. Bring them into class when we next meet, and then we'll go over them. Here's your summary. Make sure that you answer your summary questions in full sentences, and write one question on your own using your question starters. Make sure it's a high order thinking question. And here's our learning target for today. I can explain each step in solving a simple equation. So here, for instance, you had 4x is equal to 6.4. The way that you would do this is you have to undo multiplication, so I need to divide each side by 4 and then simplify. Those are the kinds of explanations we'd be looking for. I can use the rules of algebra to solve an equation. Here are our rules: addition property, subtraction property, multiplication property, and division property. All these mean are that I can add the same thing to each side or subtract the same thing to each side. So make sure that you know and understand those. Go ahead and finish up your summaries and your questions, and I will see you next time.